You are watching NSTV.
NSTV. I thought you were going to introduce me first.
That's true. That's true. All right. I thought you were doing that. Okay, but anyways.
Take two.
Take two. All right. Today we are live with Randall. Randall is amazing, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation now.
And you are watching NSTV.
Let's go. Let's go. All right.
Second time's a charm.
Yes. Okay. Sometimes I don't tell my guests how it's going to work, and it's even more fun because it's more random.
It's very Eric Andre.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Let's go. Tell us more about the tweets that you have picked for us today. The first one is here.
Okay, what do we have on the menu? Actually, let's go kind of reverse order. Let's start with the Palantir tweet. So the Technological Republic. Have you said you've skimmed this, correct?
Yes.
What kind of piqued your interest?
I think it's always very interesting how Palantir thinks about this situation of sometimes I also think about it like the idea of creating an adversary as China. It's good to kind of align the entire industry for Americans and for them to kind of have a selling point for the American government that why you should keep investing in us.
Right.
But on the other hand, I also think that may be wrong because it's like that manufacturing situation, similar to how you would think right now what Anthropic is doing.
Yes,
so
this is very relevant.
Exactly.
Yes.
Anthropic creates a problem first that, okay, we have a model called Mythos, which is gonna, with one click, very quickly, gonna find 0-day vulnerabilities in every important website in North American governments and in all the companies.
Yeah.
Now you should listen to us, and now you should buy from us, and you should pay us all the money. So it's like, it's like antivirus and virus. You create the problem, and then you are like, I have the solution. Come buy from me. Well,
and actually, back to the kind of Anthropic conversation, this actually has almost more to do with the story before Mythos, which is when Anthropic was classified as a supply chain risk.
Right.
Because this tweet in particular is almost like, I would describe it as like a Techno-Nationalist Manifesto.
Yes.
Because what it's saying is like, okay, there's no such thing as like, almost like corporate America and America, the institution. It's like, we are now one. And so therefore tech companies, you are now part of the national fabric and you need to kind of get in line. And that's what this is kind of saying. And when Anthropic kind of said, you can use my models for this and this, but you can't use it for, like, let's say, autonomous, weapons that are going to attack without human kind of intervention or anything like that, or on public surveillance, like that, then the government pushed back. That's where Trump kind of said, look, we can't let a private company tell us how to run our military, right? And then they pulled the plug on them. And in fact, Dario just went to the White House yesterday to meet with the president and I think Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. So this kind of manifesto, and Palantir is in the middle of this too, because Palantir was using Claude as part of their kind of engine behind their product. So this Techno-Nationalist Manifesto here is saying things like, there's no difference between like the corporations and the nations that they are based in and that they must serve. There's stuff in here around like we should reintroduce like national military service. It's a very kind of like war like kind of tenor to it.
It's very interesting. So now we kind of have a really high-level idea of what they're trying to do, and it's very interesting. Like, these are the very specific tactics that now they're talking about, that, okay, free email is not enough. So it's very specific to, let's say, what do we talk about? We talk about freedom. They're talking about sovereignty over here.
Yeah, like so they talk about, so see this first one. Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. So it's saying like, you can't separate yourself from like the country. You can't think you're like morally, above it, and therefore you can't serve it. Like, we must all be in service as a kind of, corporations are technically entities, from a legal perspective, right?
Right.
So you are no different than any other citizen who's asked and called upon in a draft situation, for example.
Right.
And the tenor of this is saying like, okay, technology companies, your country's calling you, like, stop being like, resistant to what we're trying to do and play ball and things like that, because this is like you're kind of talking about before, this is potentially an existential threat against, the other, which in this case is China. So it's very interesting to see Palantir come up with this, and the response has been very obviously quite reactive, like things like comments like national service should be a universal duty,
Right.
right? So they're saying like conscription should be compulsory.
Right.
So these are like pretty radical things for a tech
Yes.
company coming up.
Yes. So on the spectrum of what Palantir is saying is right, it's morally right, this is how it should be, versus they're kind of manufacturing a sort of fear, manufacturing a sort of this adversarial, perspective stance, just so that it helps them to be the kind of like the leader over here, and
Right.
people throw money at them and people give prestige to them. Where do you believe on the spectrum they are?
Yeah, so here's the interesting thing, because like I talked about this in my talk around like government advocacy. It was called "You Can Be at the Table or on the Menu,"
Yes.
and how like tech companies need to be at the table, otherwise they're going to be like victims of like policy and regulation. There's a thing that big tech companies do called regulatory capture. It's when essentially they create regulations as a moat. So they create really high barriers to like be compliant. So like, really high compliance costs. You need to hire like an officer that is responsible for this stuff, multi-million-dollar audits, right? They do that to like push out small guys from being able to compete. That was in AI in the early days. Like, you remember Sam Altman's like,
Right.
we should be very safe. We should have like, really high compliance and blah, blah, blah. There should be independent audits of the models if you're have a certain number of parameters. But that's like suddenly changed now, because they're all like, oh shit, like you need to take all the leashes off of us, because now it's like a like space race style kind of like battle for who gets to AGI and ASI first, right? So now everyone is talking more like this, where it's like, look, like if you regulate us, that's at your own peril, right? Because
Right.
China's going to get there first.
Right.
So it's almost like they've changed their like tune pretty significantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm really curious, like, would you have the perspective from China? Like, how is China reading the situation? Like, are they like, what are these guys doing? They're just creating a game that we don't want to engage in? Or are they like, okay, they're creating this adversary, they're creating this game, so let's play this game?
Yeah, it's been interesting, because like there's China like signal versus like noise. Like
Yeah.
China has said that they would be willing to kind of talk about like how to regulate AI, but there's no trust between the two parties, so it doesn't even really matter. Even if they did legitimately come to the table, it's like a prisoner's dilemma, right? Like,
Right.
how much do you actually trust the other guy to fulfill what they're going to say?
Right.
And especially in this whole like tariff environment, like I'm half Chinese, so I kind of know how like Chinese people operate. And one of the things I did recently is I read, I bought The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump.
Yes.
And I reread The Art of War by
Okay.
Sun Tzu.
Okay.
And if you read those two things, you can see the playbooks like playing out in real time. If you go on like read Trump's like tweets and stuff like that, and read the kind of statements by China, it's literally Art of the Deal versus Art of War, how they're playing.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think so. Trump is very recent personality, let's say, or like Sun Tzu is much more older. We're talking like
Yes.
1,000 years or 2,000
Yeah,
years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
Who do you think is like Trump must be influenced and inspired by somebody that he has read? Like, is he inspired by Sun Tzu, or is his ideology like totally in contrast with Sun Tzu?
He almost like I don't think it's necessarily anything he read, because maybe some people would argue his
Okay,
literacy.
okay,
But like
okay.
if you think about where he came from, right? Like
Yeah.
his dad was building apartments in like Brooklyn and like the Bronx, or I think
Yes.
the Bronx maybe, and
Yes.
like he talked about how he used to actually have to like collect rent and stuff like that. So imagine the personalities he had to deal with, right? Like these are like tough people. He dealt with construction workers,
Yeah.
New York construction workers, right?
Yeah.
Like he very likely dealt with the mob, and
Right.
there were influences like Roy Cohn, who was that very kind of shady lawyer in New York politics. So he kind of grew up in like the Brass-Knuckle kind of style of like, negotiation, strong man, right? Sun Tzu is like, the art of fighting without fighting, right? Like that's the best way to fight. That's one thing that Sun Tzu says. And so you got like the loud kind of brash, like intimidation style versus like the delicate long game style, right?
Right.
And when you play like, politicians think in 4-year cycles because they want to get elected, in the next term. So, but you got China when you got like, let's say a more kind of single
Long-term
leader,
approach, yeah.
strong man who can have strategies that span like, 25 years, 100 years. Like how do you play a game of chess against someone who's playing a 100-year-long game when you're thinking of just like the midterms and then like the next presidential election. It's like very hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
Like when you think about this entire Belt and Road Initiative, like
Yes.
I was reading about this, Forest City was part of the Belt and Road Initiative. So
Interesting.
it's like, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
So how far do you have to think
Yeah.
for stuff like that? Yeah.
Yeah, and the question is like, when is China going to kind of turn the screws on or start calling in those IOUs, right? Because they've been building airports, roads, shipyards all across Africa, Asia, South America, and like, there's going to be a point where this all like, they're going to try to collect these uncollectible debts, and they're going to, who knows what's going to happen? Because China likes to say they've never colonized anyone, but is this a form of economic colonialism? I don't know, but.
This is very interesting because I think one of the tweets that I have bookmarked is there's this one creator that everybody follows. He's pseudonymous. His name is Hampton.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've come across
No.
him. He shares very good quality, high taste stuff. And sometimes it could be motivational. Sometimes it's just like, sometimes it's just very culturally relevant. So stuff like that, very culturally relevant. And recently he's visiting Hong Kong and he's like, learn Mandarin. This is going to be important.
Where they speak
Word
Cantonese, which
exchanging.
is interesting.
Okay.
Because in Hong Kong they speak Cantonese, so maybe he's saying like they're gonna like push
Right.
like everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Or
Yeah.
maybe he just doesn't know the difference between Cantonese and Mandarin.
They're very different, like
Yes.
distinct, like sound
Yes.
wise. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, my read was that he's saying that yes, because this is the same conversation we were having yesterday, where Jesse here, he's making a trip. Let's go.
Speaking of Chinese, this
Let's
is an old
go.
Chinese man drink.
Let's go.
Oldenlandia.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love
So
this.
so here you go.
Thank you.
It's don't worry, it's not alcohol. It's sparkling water, but it tastes like old man. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's
Let's
herbal.
go.
Yeah. We're being converts. Or this could be your next sponsor, Oldenlandia, for old souls.
Oldenlandia. Let's go. Sparkling water.
Everything's old.
Love
What's
this.
old
Love
is
this.
new.
Thanks, man. Just yesterday we were like, we should have like a drink over here. We are going for like
Should have
hours
a
and hours.
sponsor.
We should have like smoothies or something.
100%.
Yeah.
NS Cafe, sponsor, please.
NS Cafe. Let's go. We'll get some nice avocado espresso smoothie. Okay, where are we at? Right,
China,
my
yeah.
read on that tweet was simply the fact that it's so funny. I was just in the NS library and Veronica was teaching beginner Chinese and everybody's learning Chinese. And I asked this one lady, why are you learning Chinese? Because some of these, there were only 4 or 5 people, which makes total sense. Like if it would be the first session, there would be 100 people interested. And as you keep going, you see the drop off. And these 5 people, they were really engaged and they were responding and seemed like they learned it.
Yeah.
You need a very strong reason. I learned French in the last 1 year. It's very hard to learn a language.
What did you have? Did you have a French girlfriend? Is that why you learned?
I thought, no. I had to do it.
What was
for-
your big motivation?
My motivation was Canadian PR.
Oh, okay.
And also
Fair,
applying
fair,
for some
fair,
other
okay.
passports. So it's like, okay, I think learning French is going to be incredible.
Okay.
But yes, having a girlfriend was in a period where once you have done the foundation, having
Yeah.
a girlfriend is the best way to really engage
True,
in that language.
true.
Exactly. So I just go to this session,
Yeah.
beginner Chinese. I meet this one lady and I was like, what's your why? Why are you learning? And she's like, I have a nanny who is Chinese. My kid has a nanny who is Chinese, and because my husband wants my kid to learn Chinese, and my husband is like global operator, and he believes that for the kid it's really important to know English and Chinese, and it should start right now.
It's true. It's true.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, by the way, at NS, like there are more white people that speak Chinese and Russian. Well, I guess a lot of white people speak Russian, but more people that speak Chinese and Russian here than like anywhere I've ever been. And outside of maybe like Langley, Virginia, which is the CIA headquarters, by the way. I think this place has like a ton of people that are like...
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You know, I learned French in the last 1 year, but still I can hold a very smooth conversation. But today I saw Veronica. She had a really smooth conversation with a Chinese person in China.
Yeah,
she's
she's
crazy.
I think she has a great way of like learning things. She even did a session on this.
Okay.
Of like how to learn things, and yeah, she's been able to acquire all these languages. It's very fascinating. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, why do you think that all these white people are learning Chinese? Why do they feel a need that it's relevant?
I think they're reading the tea leaves, and no pun intended, but speaking of tea leaves, I think they see like, the global order is kind of shifting, and there might be a multipolar world, and obviously one of those potential poles is, China and the United States, and so naturally it just makes sense. But, partly I kind of think too, like with AI and all this other stuff, like what's maybe the relevance of languages? We're probably going to have all these devices and things like that will automatically translate. There's obviously better connection if you speak it and understand it and things like that. But yeah, I think ultimately they're just anticipating where the puck is going. It's this kind of multipolar world has become more and more of like a reality, I think, especially in the last year or so.
Yeah.
So that would be my anticipation.
This is very, very interesting because when I'm learning French, you have to consume a lot. The first 3 months you have to just focus on consumption. And then I'm watching these documentaries, these news channels, and a lot of them are just talking about that how we are losing French, how people are losing French because people in French are very rigid about, like, how we have an English dictionary and every year we add like one word of the year, like once they add selfie, this time maybe they added 6, 7, I don't know if very weird, but and then they add what's that thing? Labubu? I don't know if they added Labubu, but anyways, it's very funny. French are very rigid with that. They wouldn't add anything. They don't want the mélange, like they say. They don't want the mixture of English and French. They only want to control French, that we are just French. We don't mix with English, and there's nothing like that.
Yeah, but interesting.
When you start seeing their fears and all of that, you kind of realize that it's all about power, right? French was the top dog, or French people were the top dog. And it's like, because whoever has the power, their culture becomes the mainstream. Their culture becomes relevant, and people start adopting it.
And are you talking about it in a Quebec context or like a France context? Because I think based on what you said, it's almost like Quebec is almost more like French nationalist than France is about preserving its French culture. Because obviously France is very diverse now, especially over the last 10 years or so. Whereas Quebec is like almost going like even deeper into, they even speak Old French, right? Exactly. Like when you speak Quebec French to like French, you're like, what are you?
So this is amazing what you said, because that tells me that you are very...
Well, I'm Canadian, so...
Oh, you're Canadian? I had no idea.
I should have revealed that. You would have thought I was very worldly.
Okay, so you're half Canadian, half Chinese.
I'm half Ukrainian, half Chinese, but I was born in Toronto,
Oh my God. Okay. So that's how you're hitting all the
I should have just pretended I was very worldly.
Context.
Like, of course I knew Quebec.
Wow. Yeah. Because this video that I'm talking about, that was from Quebec. That was from Montreal.
That makes sense.
So that's I didn't say that because I wasn't sure like how much you know about the French, but literally even the French are split between the Quebecois and the actual Français. So they're within themselves as well fighting.
Well, and they like the laws there are getting more restrictive. Like I think there were like companies that had significant penalties because they didn't put French first. It was like English first. You saw the CEO of Air Canada had to resign because he didn't issue. He resigned because he didn't issue his condolences in English and French.
Wow.
And partly it was because I think both the pilots or one of the pilots was French Canadian, and the flight was from Montreal to LaGuardia, right? The one that got hit and the two pilots died. Because he didn't issue his apology in English and French, he ended up having to resign. And this is a guy who, was CFO, helped get it through like all these struggles, and like this one speech essentially killed his career.
This is crazy. Are you sure that he got resigned? Because I did hear that Mark Carney was like, he kind of like, what do we say? He was like, I'm not happy that you didn't do this announcement in French as well. But I'm not sure he actually resigned.
Are we able to check live?
We can check. Yeah, check live.
Let's check live.
Did the Air Canada CEO had to resign for not giving his condolences in French?
Yes.
Let's see. Oh my God. Short answer, not exactly, but it was a major trigger in a much bigger situation.
Well,
there was a backlash, yes. Prime Minister, lack of compassion and judgment. He apologized.
It says Air Canada CEO to resign after backlash. This is on March 30th.
Okay.
Oh, he says he's retiring.
Yes.
But
it was announced he would step down later in 26. The company framed as a planned retirement. This is crazy.
Don't you think they would have Yeah, the timing
This
is a little interesting.
crazy. No, you're right. You're right. This is.
But the
crazy.
PM, yeah, Mark Carney was criticizing him. Yeah,
This is crazy. This is crazy.
yeah. Let's go back.
Wow. Because it's like, now you are kind of competing with the timeline. There is this timeline effect going on.
Yeah,
Where there could be a major issue that everybody on, because Twitter has kind of become the global town square.
Yes.
The globally, what are the problems that people care about today in this
Yeah.
moment? And a problem could take over the timeline for 1 or 2 days. So it's like, let's say a really important problem has taken over for 1 or 2 days, and then suddenly you hear that the Prime Minister of Canada is not happy that you didn't give the condolences in French. Then people start comparing like how stupid is that thing is as compared to the bigger theme that everybody cares about today in this moment. So it's like there's this timeline effect that is going on, which is very interesting.
yeah. It's very strange, and like how it like reframes the narrative, like you're talking about. Like it's. I mean, I'm glad that Elon did acquire X, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of like angles that would not have been covered had it not been protected. But
Yes.
but yeah.
You know what I'm really happy for,
What?
or really happy about? I'm really happy that they just hired Benji Taylor. You know Benji Taylor?
No.
So he was at Family Wallet, and in my previous company, when I was in crypto, we were working very closely with them, and he was an amazing designer.
Mm.
And then he was hired by Baze, and he pretty much, I'm guessing he redesigned this Baze. He was behind this redesign of Baze.
Oh, interesting.
And then recently, just maybe less than a month ago, he was hired by X. So now there are very tiny things. Obviously, X is massive, and there are a lot of things going on. So he's now very slowly like upgrading a little of things,
Could
like
use,
just
yeah.
the Grok logo, the new voice API they announced. The Grok logo, which is very like stiff and rigid,
Yeah.
he added some little curves and character to it.
Yeah,
with
I could
texture.
use-
I'm like, this is beautiful.
It
I
could
think-
use some
yeah.
updates, yeah.
Yeah.
But they lost on the opportunity to call this the space base.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Base space. Base space.
Base space.
It should be called the space base, like a space base, like like a moon base.
Okay,
space
that is really
base.
cool. You know what that reminds me of? SpaceX acquired XAI.
Yes, SpaceXAI.
So now they call SpaceXAI
Yeah.
Space
Space
X
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
Think
It's
about
brilliant.
it. Think about
He's
it.
always 10 chess
Think
moves
about
ahead.
it. How? I don't think he thought about that, right? This is just.
Had
This
to
is
have
not.
been.
This cannot be.
Had to have
This
been.
has to be a, what do we say, coincidence.
You think so?
When I read that, I'm like, bro, you
Do you
are.
believe in coincidences?
I believe in coincidences.
Isn't this like a too
Like-
big a...
Like, what is NSTV? Literally, I am sitting with this one guy, Jordan, and he's like, he's a YouTuber, he's a proper filmmaker, and he was hired by NS to create like really aesthetic videos. He's like, I would like to know other people with YouTube channels.
Oh.
And I just created a no shit dog, put like 4 videos, I sent it, and then people started responding that, hey, I like this. And then I'm like, you know what? We should call it NSTV. I'm just having a joke with a friend. And then NSTV as a website is launched. I'm like, but as a website doesn't make sense. It should be a show.
Yeah,
And now
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
show. You are on it. So it's a coincidence. NSTV. It flows.
Yeah,
right?
it does have a nice
It's a
name.
good.
Yeah.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good name for a directory of creators, but it's a good name for a show.
It is a great show
Yeah.
name. Yeah. Yeah. But, okay, so, and what episode number is this?
4.
4.
Yeah.
Oh, for Chinese, not good number.
Oh, that's true. That's
How
true.
dare you be culturally
That's
insensitive.
true.
No.
I like we.
I'm
Were,
only happy. It's
No,
okay.
no, we were talking about this. That can you explain why 4 and 13 are not even the floors in some Chinese apartments? Like in Vancouver,
Yeah.
they are kind of built for the Chinese millionaires.
Yes.
As an investment vehicle. So we don't. I'm not sure if in my building we had floor number 13. Yeah.
4, I would definitely not be surprised, because 4 sounds like the word for death in Chinese. And then
Okay.
13, I think, is like the Western bad luck number.
Okay.
But I actually like the number 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So 13 is not a Chinese thing.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think they're like super superstitious.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think part of it has to deal with the gambling culture.
Okay.
We need every
Makes sense.
bit
Makes
of
sense.
luck we can get.
And it's very surprising that our top floor is 13.
Yes, exactly. But I like
Yeah.
13. I'm immune to 13.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And do we have 4th floor?
We do.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I bet some really Chinese people would ask to switch. Yeah. So, but like on the other hand, 8 is super lucky.
Okay.
And so people in China will actually
8
pay.
because of dragon?
I can't. I don't speak Chinese. That's the
Okay.
problem. I should attend front.
That is crazy.
But
You're half Chinese.
I know, because my parents didn't speak it to each other. But 8 is super lucky, and so people will like actually buy like phone numbers with 8888 in it. Like they'll spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars like bidding for it. Yeah.
And same with
It's so
the
lucky.